Councilmember Ortiz.
Here.
Councilmember Mackin. Councilmember Pierce.
Here.
Councilmember Knott.
Here.
Councilmember Beckwith.
Here.
Councilmember Petsko.
Here.
Councilmember Hazelmaker.
Here.
Councilmember Holtz.
Here.
Mayor Craig.
I'm here. We have a spot on our agenda now, and we have one at the end of the meeting for public comments. So if anyone would like to address the council, they may do so now or at the end of the meeting. Seeing none, we'll move to our consent agenda. These are items that we consider to be routine. We'll take them in one motion unless someone up here or someone in the audience wants that item removed, for further discussion or clarification. Tonight on our consent agenda, we've got our minutes of June 10th and our closed session minutes of June 10th, Planning Commission special minutes of May 20th, our BPU minutes of May 21st, our BPU utility reports and financial statements for April, a letter from Sean Watson and Terry Boga requesting funding for fiscal year 18-19, and a memo from me regarding a couple board appointments. Those are the items on our consent agenda tonight. Is there anyone on council who wishes something removed? Is there any audience? Seeing none, we look for a motion to approve our consent agenda.
So moved. Support.
A motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have a public hearing. We have in front of you a memo and letter from Keith Baker regarding the CDBG RFL loan application for the Aqua Pit. Our action would be to consider adoption of Resolution 1943. I will open the public hearing and we'll hear from the public. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So first, thank everyone for allowing us to come here and present this project to the council. So my name is Bernard Robeson, and I'm a commercial lender for Northern Initiatives, and we are a small organization, so I don't expect you all, other than Keith, to know about us. And so we're headquartered in Marquette. We are a nonprofit CDFI. We've been around since 1992, but we did not become a certified CDFI until 2000. We're probably in about 70 plus counties. We've created upwards of 6,000 jobs since we became CDFI, and then we've lent out about $66 million. To give you an idea of our portfolio, about 30 to 40% are women-owned businesses. A large portion of our money also go to the underserved community. And we look at lending a little different from the conventional financial institutions because we're willing to take that chance on businesses, and we also give them services to help them become successful. And the thing that got us to administer the CDBG revolving loan fund was because we've successful in the past in the UP. And so the MBDC kind of came to us and said, here's more funds, let's see what you can do. And we're working on that too. From there, we have Seth Berry, who is introducing the Aquapit. And the Aquapit is a huge inflatable playground that sits anchors inside of a lake, and it gives kids the opportunity, even some adults who want to take the chance to do it, the opportunity to play on the obstacle course or have fun in the water for about an hour. He's requested about $237,000, and this will create 7 full-time equivalent positions, and we will have to hire from the city of Coldwater, and so we're stimulating the economy by keeping that money in here, as well as bringing in development, or we're bringing in money from probably a radius about 45 miles outside of the city of Coldwater. And so it's a unique project, and so we just appreciate if everyone kind of opened their mind and gave it a chance. From there, I'll let Seth Berry take over and tell about the project.
Thank you, City Council. I appreciate your time. My name is Seth Berry. I am a resident of Coldwater. I grew up in Branch County. Other than a little stint away from home, I've been back for quite a while. But this is a project that I've been, kind of dreaming about and my wife and I have been dreaming about for quite some time. and finally had the opportunity to make this happen. And so I'm very gracious for Bernard and Northern Initiatives to see the potential in this. These are actually popping up quite a bit everywhere, and they are a very fun, popular thing. If you could flip to the next slide, please, that'd be great. So the first question that you have to ask is like, what's an aqua park? What's the aqua pit? And what is this going to do? So it's really kind of hard to explain. So we actually have a video to present to show another aqua park in operation to really give you an idea of what we're looking to build. So please.
Would you all like if I push the TV back so everyone can see it?
No, but they all can see it.
We have.
They're- Thank you very much on that. So you kind of can see that there's a lot of things going on there. There's one thing that every activity that you saw on that video, we will have except for one to start off with. And that is the wakeboarding. That's what's called a cable wakeboard park. And they're pretty capital intensive, and so we're not going to start off with that, but that is actually one of our future goals to do that. It affords people an opportunity that don't have lake access, an opportunity that don't have a boat, that they can go out and participate in these water sports activities. You actually can ski behind it and everything else. And believe it or not, my chubby self was able to go on one in Texas in part of my research. And they are an absolute blast. But as for the aqua park, I've been to a couple. I've been to Florida, Georgia, Texas, and so I've spent some time researching this over the years. But as for all the other activities, the kayaking, the paddleboarding, the swim area, the beach, the volleyball, all of those activities, and obviously the aqua park, will be offered as part of this startup, and then for future expansion down the road. Our goal is to create a destination. That's really what we want to do. And the other companies that have started these up, you would be surprised at how many people they draw in from out of other areas. And don't think that this is just a southern activity. This is, even though I mentioned those in the south, there's actually one of these up in the Upper Peninsula, if you can believe that or not, and it's a very popular item up there. That is one of our goals. We plan on finding a way to have food out there and concessions. I have reached an agreement with the owners. This would be located at the old Stone Cove gravel pit, just on South Michigan Avenue. So very, very close. As a matter of fact, it's off the trail of the bike path there that connects to Walmart. So kids, depending on the age, and we'll go into details later, but kids would be able to attend without their parents if they're the appropriate age. So it's a summer activity to get kids that are, once they're out of school, to give them something to do. Let's see. I did want to put up a few frequently asked questions, like the first one that I always get, will you have lifeguards on duty? This will be a swim at your own risk, but we will have what are called aqua guides out there they actually stand on the platforms in the park, and they're kind of monitors out there. Most, if not all of them, will be certified lifeguards, but everybody that participates in the water activities, whether it's the aqua park, the kayaking, the paddleboarding, other than just swimming in the designated beach zone, will be required to wear a U.S. Coast Guard approved life vest. I do remember seeing one comment today. The question was, well, that pit's pretty deep, and that actually is what you want to have. Because if you put something in a very shallow area, and you have some, even though no diving will be allowed, you're going to have there's always somebody out there wanting to challenge the rules. You actually want, the recommended depth is a minimum of 10 feet that you have this in. That's why the life jacket is required. How much will it cost? That's always the question that comes up, but it will be extremely affordable. We don't have the final pricing set, but you would be surprised at how affordable it is. If they attend, typically what happens if they do attend the aqua park, they buy a pass to be on it for a certain time frame, then they really get an access to the beach all day long and can partake in all the other free activities that we'll have available. But in a sense, that's pretty much what the project is, and we're looking to open up in May of next year. And we're really excited to put this forward. I think it'll be a great thing for the community. Another activity, I do believe, in the spring or somewhere in January, there was a study done by a gentleman out of, I believe, East Lansing, a consultant, and said that there are 100 lakes in this county, and they're very inaccessible to the people of the county and the surrounding counties. Just one little quick story. Last year I had my daughter and some of her friends out on her boat. We went out to Marble Lake, and one of them said, they just had said, well, I've never been out on the lake before. And I literally put the boat in neutral and I shut it off. And I said, can you please tell me that again? She's like, I've lived in Quincy my entire life and I've never been out on the lake. And then my daughter's two other friends actually echoed the same thing, that they had never been on the lake. So I had 3 people in the boat, lifelong residents of Quincy, the gateway to the chain of lakes, that had never been on the lake. And so access to these types of things are, even in a lake, a county that has 100 lakes in it, it is a challenge for people to get in there to have a low-cost alternative. So that's what we want to do, and I'm looking forward to you guys approving this, and looking forward to opening this up next year.
Yeah, if I may, Your Honor and Counsel, so just a few of the specifics relative to the application. You did have a copy of the application in your packet. It's for the revolving loan fund of the Community Development Block Grant Program. Just a little bit of background about what that is. Those are federal funds that have been recaptured over time through the course of loaning economic development projects. The initial project, for those that were here at the time, was to help Creole and the development of the original Comfort Inn, which is now the Quality Inn. And as those funds have been repaid, those funds have been reloaned into industrial and commercial projects over the last 30 years or so. The request is for $237,600 for financing equipment and working capital for the property that he mentioned at 262 South Michigan Avenue. while the property itself is in Coldwater Township, these funds are regionalized to the point where we can, while we are the fiduciary of the funds, we can act on the request for a location outside the city limits, but the project itself will have to meet local zoning and planning through Coldwater Township, and they've begun that process. Huntington Bank is involved. Northern Initiatives, there again, a little bit more about them. They are the third-party administrator through the state of Michigan for these funds on behalf of the city of Coldwater. So they are our fiduciary and administrator for the funds. And there was a committee meeting at which this project is initially reviewed. That's made up of 2 local representatives, myself and Lisa Miller, our Economic Development Director, and 3 non-local representatives selected or employed by Northern Initiatives, and that took place on June 18th. There are a number of different steps in the process, this being essentially the first public one with a public hearing with the application of the funds themselves, but there is formal loan award, completion of an environmental review, and other steps including the local planning and zoning that will have to take place. The lease, we've talked at the committee level. Much of this hinges on the specifics within the lease of the property. And so with that, in as much as this project, these funds have been utilized over time, they are subject to limitations by the state of Michigan, one of which is funds have to be reutilized within a certain period of time to remain eligible for the city and projects within our area to apply for, and that time is running short. And so the advantage of having a project is that we remain eligible for these funds. The current balance of the program is $583,000. And if this project were to be approved, that would remain another $346,000 for use of other projects. And just for some context, the most recent project that this fund helped complete was the expansion and renovation of the Tasty Twist on Marshall Avenue. So with that, open it up to any other public comments. This is a public hearing that's required as part of the federal CDBG program, and then questions of the council of the applicants, and then ultimately whether or not to consider adoption of Resolution 1943.
Council, questions for?
I've got a couple of questions. This is the revolving loan, key working loan, so these are paid back over a certain amount of years.
Oh, that was my question. How are they
What kind of interest rates do you guys give out?
I'll let Bernard respond to that, but yes, it is a loan.
It still works like a regular loan, and at one point in time, the MEDC just changed it to the point where the rate has to be considerably close to what prime is. In some cases, we have flexibility, but it depends on the use. There's a lot of contingencies the company we're dealing with, how long they've been in business, the list goes on. Again, and then the term works like any other business loan. You can do it for 5 years over 180 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, during the loan, if I may, so during the loan committee meeting, that it is a, remind me, or for their benefit, the term was for a certain number of months or years, but there was a 5-year, essentially a 5-year.
Yeah, in which it needs to be refinanced at that point in time. And if it makes sense, he's more than welcome to come back to Northern Initiative to refinance with us too. Really quickly, I heard you say Huntington Bank isn't in it. With us being a CDFI, we get our funds many different ways, philanthropic organizations. Maybe we'll take out a low interest rate loan from a Huntington Bank and then throw our spread on top of it. But Huntington Bank is not involved in it. The money we're using is from us.
If you had to come back in 5 years in Northern Initiatives, would we have to go through this process again, or would that just be between you and him at that point?
It would be between us at that point. And the other thing is that these funds, as you pay them back, become defederalized. And so there's just more money we can take out to even, we're no longer centered to stay in Coldwater, but we can go over to Quincy and help someone if need be. So,
Will the jobs that are created be seasonal positions, or are there any full-time year-round positions?
they're seasonal, they're seasonal.
They're all seasonal?
Mhm.
Okay.
And that season would be the April 1st through September 30th.
May through September for sure, but Seth is willing to open up earlier if the weather allows. Also, would you like to swim in the lake in the winter?
Sometimes it's the best time.
So out of curiosity,
Fishing.
have you done water sampling over there? I mean, in terms of, I have no idea, but to me, someplace that was used as an industrial area, what's the quality of the water?
I will say that right now, at this point in time, we have someone working on environmental review.
I personally have been over there, and from my standpoint, it is some of the cleanest water I've seen in this county. For the industrial use, the only thing that's been used for out there is a gravel pit. So they've just been taking dirt out of there over many, many decades.
That's the really long shape one, not the long, thin one that runs along Michigan Avenue, right?
It's the big oval one on the west side of Michigan Avenue. Correct.
And are you going to have the whole property then?
That is the agreement that we entered with.
I can ask, are you purchasing the property or leasing it for the business?
It is a lease purchase agreement.
Lease only?
Yes.
Keith, is there any liability to the city?
No, we're the lender to it.
So if, if it would go under, would the city of Coldwater, I just want to have this on the record, would we be liable for any funds?
I might ask Tom to correct me if I misspeak, but to my knowledge, no, it's not as if we're backing the revolving loan fund monies with city monies or with full faith and credit of the cities. No, that doesn't.
I know, to be honest, if it was to go under, the only way a city could be responsible for such funds is if there was like a conflict of interest when that lending happened. So we'll lend it to a brother or something like that. No, I didn't disclose a relationship or something like that. But in those cases, we haven't had any businesses go under that we've lent the money to, or our risk portfolio is pretty similar to that of the bank, and we take on more risk, to be honest with you all. But even in those situations when a business do go under, we tend to try to work with them through the entire process. It's not, we come and take everything and liquidate you and then take you to court type thing. We try to make the terms of the loan more manageable for them so that we can get it paid out, because money only pays for money, right?
Seth, when you've been to some of these other places, what kind of entry fees were they?
They vary quite a bit actually, but I've seen them all the way from $8 to sometimes $25, but depending on the activity. So our intent is to keep them as, we'll call it market-based but affordable. I mean, we haven't identified the final pricing, but our intent is to make it affordable for everybody.
Now, what type of, I know it's going to depend if you were in Orlando or if you're in the UP. What are you guys expecting based on your research for your annual attendance? How many people might this be bringing into our community?
The people that I've worked with, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I'll give you an idea. So the video that you just saw of that place, that one happens to be in California. I have a very good friend out in Sacramento, and who has known about us doing this for a very long time, actually was there yesterday with his nephews, or I'm sorry, not yesterday, but Saturday, and called my phone and said, oh my gosh, maybe a couple of expletives in there. He's like, when you talked to me about it, I understood it, but when I saw it, he's like, it is amazing. I've actually talked to the owner of that park, but I mean, I would hope to see, anywhere from, 400 to 500 people a day come to there. The park itself can hold 115 people at a time, but they rotate in and out. So it's not like you have 115 people out there and they get an all-day pass. They go out for 50 minutes, you clear the field, switch out life jackets, you get in line for the next, set to go out, and then you've got 50 minutes to go out there and play and run around and have fun. So it rotates.
So the admission fee is per hour for the activity part?
You'll have, we'll have different levels of pricing, but typically you have one ticket gets you 1 50-minute pass, and you can do all-day passes, seasonal passes. But typically what'll happen is like if I buy one pass to the park, then I get to stay there all day, hang out at the beach for free. It's all included. Probably one of the things that we'll do is like if mom comes and brings little Johnny, and she just buys a pass for Johnny, we'll have some comfort items there for her to sit. Well, that part of that pass of her buying passes, I'm not gonna, it'll be a free beach pass for her because she's just sitting there observing. But so we'll do things like that.
Is life jacket part of the entry, or is that around, additional round?
For the rented activities, it will be included in that. We're just, because it's a requirement, we want everybody to be safe.
So this is kind of like a complex. We have the rented activities, or you have the free beach.
Yeah.
And the concessions, and any opportunities for party rentals, birthday parties.
Absolutely. We'll develop those things, but a lot of these aqua parks have day camps, week camps, youth activities, corporate outings. What we're planning on to start with is just the beginning. We really want to make this a destination, and our goal is to get profitable as quickly as possible and look at those opportunities and look at what the needs are, look at what the requests are to say, boy, it would be awesome if you had this. Well, if I get, 50 or 60 people telling me that, hey, that'd be awesome if we had this, then we'll look at that to say, okay, that's where the need is coming, or the want, and supply and demand.
And closest competition?
Closest competition,
Livingston, or something.
Yeah.
Livingston County, Detroit.
Okay.
There's one down in Lima, Ohio, but it's a very, very tiny one. They only offer just the aqua park. That's the uniqueness of this, is that it kind of is applied differently to different areas. For example, the cable wakeboarding that you saw, there's a little tiny one up in Grand Rapids, but they use that more of a demo shop because it's tied to a boat dealer. They don't have any of the other things. This place, unlike all the other places in the surrounding area, will not be able to offer everything that we're going to be able to offer.
What kind of acreage is the water?
112.
It's 112 acres.
112, and how deep?
On average, it's about 20 or 30 feet out there. There are places that are about 40 feet deep.
It's big enough for the bounce thing as well as the cable?
I have room out there to pretty much do everything. One of the activities that I'm hoping to have, which really wasn't on the list, it was in the presentation, is I have room out there to run a boat, and the biggest craze right now is surfing. So if we have a boat out there, we can teach, wakeboarding and wake surfing behind a boat on top of that. But we will section all of those areas off. It is a pretty enormous lake. To give you an idea of the size, the part of the lake of North Lake where the narrowest public access is, that very northern part of that kind of body of water, it's actually about that size, maybe a little bit smaller than that, but it's a pretty significant body of water out there.
Question, Council?
So we've got a little bit more than $500,000 in this. We're looking at here, a little more, or a little less than $250,000. That if used, that fund wouldn't go somewhere else. But if I can ask this question, if it's not appropriate, let me know. But what do you have in this so that we feel comfortable knowing that if this doesn't work out, it wasn't just a, oh shucks, I tried. Thanks for money.
So I talked to Keith about this before, and I told him that we want to continue to be a resource no matter what to the city of Coldwater. The other thing is when we talk about the funds becoming defederalized, then that money transferred to our books and us being a nonprofit, then we get to become more sustainable in that area, and then we get to that transition us to lending out more money to create more jobs, helping more people, like entrepreneurs.
And that would then free it up for the city again, right?
Yep. Yeah.
For us, they'll give us our $250,000 back, available to loan.
To reutilize it, I mean, with a different applicant. And here's whether or not you want to answer, to what extent you have.
I'll answer it generally. It's personally, regardless of the amount of money that I'll have into it, if this were to fail, I would take a significant financial hit personally. I'm going to actually continue my current employment even through the first year. My family is, my wife here, she's going to be the operations manager and run the day-to-day operations with my support, but I'm going to continue to work because our idea is to not have to draw from the profits. We want to be profitable as quick as possible, but if it were to go under, I would take a very big hit. A very cold bath.
And on the application,
Yeah.
on the application, it did say, I think there was 2 months' salary. Is that somebody's full-time salary to get it started? Because we're looking more than 2 months out, but.
You have to, so part of the operations of the startup is, I'm going to have a whole bunch of new people to pay that and to train ahead of time, even if they aren't lifeguard certified. I mean, there's quite a bit of training that goes into it. I mean, safety is obviously going to be paramount. We want to make sure they're safe. So part of that startup is of those funds is to pay the staff before we start operations and training.
Because it said they hiring in April of next year, opening up in May.
That's our hope, roughly, obviously weather dependent. The time to set up the park is actually only a couple of days. Part of the cost that's built into it is the ability, they actually will send a professional team out, a couple of people that know how to install these. They will show us how to install them, anchor them properly, because it doesn't get deflated every day. It stays out there permanently. The stuff that this is made out of, I've been on them. I mean, it is not like a regular tube that you would have behind your boat. I mean, this stuff is thick. It is industrial. It is made to take a beating and sit out there all summer long and use year after year. If you do have a piece that goes bad, they're interlocking, so you can swap them out. So if I got a bad part, I just have to put another one in its place.
So if the funds are used, and you including purchasing the equipment, and something were to happen, do those funds secure the possession of that equipment, or is that?
Yes. That's in the agreement, yes.
Not that I be a voice of negativity here, but I look at it more like a traditional bank, which I know this is not our role with this fund, but my concern is the lack of collateral and the lack of equity that's going in. I've had some bad experience with outdoor water facilities being a losing proposition. Mainly our pool, a beautiful pool with an expensive slide that Michigan is not very conducive to a very short season. I guess my concern, you mentioned the UP, but we're a rural community. We have a short season. I certainly wish you the best, but I'm concerned that the draw on South Michigan Avenue is going to, look fun, it looks wonderful, but most of the cities, I'm sure the videos came from sunnier climates. Are there personal guarantees on this phone? No. You do not know.
There is a personal guarantee on the loan.
I'm sorry.
There is a personal guarantee on the loan. That's the first thing. The second thing I would ask you is how often has collateral paid back the loan?
How often is what?
Collateral paid back the loan. It doesn't.
It helps.
To a certain extent, it does help. But it's probably very rare that it'll pay back the loan.
So my question, and again, I don't certainly not wish anything ill, but there is a personal guarantee on these funds?
Yes.
Yourself and his family?
Yes. The other thing is there's one in the UP, and I can only imagine that they don't have as many sunny days as we do.
I can, the one in the UP, to answer your question, and that's a valid question, that's actually one of the very first questions I've gotten asked on this whenever I talked about it, consulted with people, is like, you're in Michigan, you know, they're thinking of the South. Well, like that one in the UP, it's 45 minutes outside of Marquette. It is in the middle of nowhere. It is attached to a state park, so you do have visitors there, but those owners are extremely successful. And matter of fact, they're actually the ones that have added another one, the one that he talked in Livingston. They are a profitable business. And regardless of the climate that you're in, all of them, even the ones in the South, 90% of their revenue comes from the time that school lets out to the time that it goes back in. All of them, regardless if they are in Orlando, which I've been to that one, or the one in Texas that I've been to, or the one in Georgia. It is from the time that school's in or school's out, that's where their revenue comes from.
How long has the one in the UP been in operation for?
About 4 years.
Where's the Michigan?
Yes. Good guess.
Maybe you first.
We have our resident Uber here.
The Wildcats.
Yeah.
Questions for Seth? We are also open to public comments. If anyone from the public or in the audience would like to comment on this request, they may do so now. If no one has anything else, what we're going to do is close the public hearing and we'll bring it back to council for internal discussion, debate, and then a motion. Okay, so any final comments, either of you two? Okay, public comments, so we will close the public hearing and bring it up to council level. Megan, you've been involved in drafting any of this?
Not at all.
Not at all. You're off the hook. Questions, comments? Keith can answer questions, or Tom, I suppose. Action, you're looking for a motion to either adopt or not adopt resolution 1943, I believe.
I'd like to comment before I make the motion for resolution, but just reiterate for the public, these are not any, I'm asking for your approval or your yes on this. It's no Coldwater City funds that are being used for this. It's not our savings, it's not from our budget, it's just funds that the state of Michigan has set up through other lenders that the business owners take. If the business were to go under, it's not like we would actually lose the money.
Correct.
And this is a little over $500,000 fund that we have to approve loans out for projects like this and virtually no liability to the city.
I don't like the virtually no liability. But yes, I mean, that's been the case. There have been loans, not, and maybe Tom has better experience with, there have been loans that haven't been completed, or that, you know, the projects went south, and those are just, you know, written off from that fund. But, and then there have been industrial or commercial projects that have been successful and paid back, so it's.
So what is the grand total of our RLF that we're allowed? Is it the 583,000?
Right, the current balance is
Did Tasty Twist pay?
500. Right, and that's after, you know, Tasty Twist is out there for, you know, theirs is about 2 years old now, and that was 98,000, so.
There's part of that out there. So as he pays us back, our fund grows back that we can move.
Right, that 98,000, if Tasty Twist continues to be successful, that 98,000 with interest will come back.
Okay, and then, so that boosts us up to 600 and some thousand if you would pay back, if we jump to the future. Okay, I'm just trying to work this out for all of us, I'm not trying to do anything here other than so for the public. So, if we loan it out, it's just, there's that leaves.
Or no, I was asking, I'm trying to wait Tom up here for a minute, because I had a question for him too, so.
Okay. That would then leave us with 346,000 more to loan, if we need it. And in the last 2 years, it's been 2 years since we did any loans, and that was only 98,000. So I'm just wondering, maybe I'm missing something here, that we're really not taking a big risk if the business went under, I don't see, Tom, what it is we're gonna have to pay out of our pocket.
That is my understanding.
Well, the question I was going to ask Tom is the Tasty Twist, refresh my memory, is that the only outstanding loan currently, or there are others out there that are repaying?
Everything, all of the old ones, remember, these are just so for historical purposes. The city used to actually physically have this money. We physically gave the money back to the state maybe 5 years ago. So the old loans that were out there, those would be actually paid, the check would come into the city every month, and then we would apply them into our fund. But right now, any money that comes in, like I said, we're done. We had our last, we had tax caps for money coming in the winter. That money then gets sent off to the company that administered it. So we don't actually touch any of this money.
Or just
So our liability then would be, our risk would be if we cut the check and the project went south the day after and there's no saving it for any reason, that there would be. Our liability is we would lose that $250,000 out of our fund, we could no longer loan out, and now we'll be back to $350,000, $400,000. Is that the liability? That we would lower our available fund?
right.
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
So that's our,
We're the local
approval.
approval authority of how these funds get utilized locally.
Right, and then, so what would hurt us is instead of having
But we're not,
650.
we don't financially back it, correct? Other
And
than-
if we don't use the funds, we're gonna lose them.
If you're right.
Eventually, yes, ultimately, yes, that's the cloud hanging over us at the moment too. I'm gonna ask Lisa to come up too, because she has a history of it.
No, well, I just want to know, is
Well, you have to
gotta talk
come-
into the mic.
All right.
Go on there.
The curb project, is that still on the books?
Yes, but I don't believe she actually drew down any of that particular loan.
Okay.
So that too was, the revolving loan fund was one of the financing tools of the curb project, but I don't think that she actually drew it. Well, I know that because we don't have it out, we don't have a loan outstanding, but it was available to her.
We're
Right.
I just want to say from my perspective of looking at these revolving loan funds over the course of the last 10 years, that it's been very, very difficult to utilize them from what the requirements were to be able to help with different loans. Usually it was gap financing, but now that they have switched to different organizations like yours, and they have been more creative in how they're using those funds so that they can get out for projects that are otherwise would not be financed. But we found them very difficult to use for projects before, and I do think we have other projects that we could utilize this fund where before I was not very hopeful that we would be able to get our hands on it.
So then, do you see a concern with us if we were to lower our amount down to the 350,000? Do you think downtown there's some kind of interest or something coming in where we might be hamstringing ourselves to bring in other business to our downtown area?
I think it's another wonderful tool in our toolbox for incentive projects along with the low interest loan pool program and our rebate program. It's just another tool along with traditional financing to try and get projects not only downtown but throughout our area.
But then you would be concerned
Pardon?
from the downtown aspect.
Well, in fact, we've discussed the utilization of it with a couple of projects, and that would still leave sufficient funds to do those, if those particular projects came through and went far enough along.
Is there a time frame? I may have missed it. Is there a time frame to pay that back?
5-year balloons.
Okay.
It was amortized over 15 years, but it's a 5-year balloon.
Because they said we had to refinance and look to refinance in 5 years.
I have a simple question for Megan. Any legal issues that you think we need to be aware of, or in terms of going through and doing something like this? Is there anything legally that has the potential of creating issues?
I have not looked at anything besides what was in the packet. And I wasn't asked to, and I assume that Tom knows how to run his program.
Yes.
And he knows more about these than I do. There's some history here of having used them, so no, I have nothing to offer.
Okay.
John, we've done multiple loans out of this fund over the years, so this is nothing new.
And so I think, after a long recap of it, but I mean, I guess I'm seeing this as a possible, we're looking for attractions to our town. Obviously, the closest, it's right next to our hotels. It's not far from our downtown, and I think it is possible that something like this were to kick off. We're close enough to, we always say we're just a little too far from these big cities. Well, for something like this, I believe, Wisconsin Dells is an hour and a half, 2 hours, and people love the water.
I get concerned, but I think the personal guarantees does show that they have some skin in the game, so to speak. The personal guarantees are very hard to collect, but it shows a commitment as opposed to just all our money. So what's your pleasure, folks?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 1943.
Support. We have a motion, we have support. Any other questions, concerns, comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is anybody opposed? Motion carried. Congratulations, Seth. Number 8, bills and accounts. They're asking us to approve $145,519. Everything is posted online for us or anyone to look at. Questions?
Just real quick, the $20,000 for the tree source is on the very first page. That's for that survey of the tree project, is that correct?
Correct. And it's part of a grant project, so we will be applying to, once we've been invoiced and paid those bills that were incurred, then we can apply for the reimbursement of the grant.
And that also helps us with the Arbor City.
Yeah, very much so, yes. That's Tree City USA, and Arbor Day, yep.
Questions about the bills? Not, they'd like them paid.
Move to pay our bills, Your Honor. Support.
Motion, we have support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Those are paid. Number 9, city manager report. Keith.
Thank you, Your Honor and Council. I'll try to make this brief, and as much as we have quite a few other important items to get to. But the MERS actuarial report came out, this most recent annual report. It was in the last year's city manager's report. Our percentages ticked down just a little bit based on market rate of return for last year. And if you didn't go to sleep in reading it, we would recommend that it could be useful for that purpose. The takeaway is that, our annual contributions will continue to increase, particularly as they reduce both the anticipated rate of return and then look at our actuarial study for our census population of employees to retirees. So we've had multiple meetings about that, and we're yet again meeting with MERS later next month to forecast what this will look like in the near future. Next, I'd like to address personnel-related issues. We want to recognize Kathy Musser on her announcement of retirement effective this week. Kathy has worked for the city for over 13 years as a records clerk for the police department, and she's just well-liked and well-loved over there at the police department, and we just want to express our appreciation for her time spent with the city, and I'd like to wish her best in the future and thank her for her service. We'd also like to thank Taylor Hodge, whose last day was last week for the city. He was our marketing coordinator, and he took a position in the Lansing area. And we wish Taylor well, and we are now conducting interviews to fill that position. That works on behalf of the city and the BPU related to website and marketing and Facebook management. And then lastly, we have 3 positions open currently now with the police department: the records clerk position that I noted, a certified police officer position, and the director's position. So all of those will be coming up for consideration in the next couple months. Speaking of water, we just spent a lot of time speaking of water. The Splash Park mural is done. Hope we've gotten very good positive comments about it, so take a look if you haven't been by. And like Morgan Miller was our designer for that, and she was really pleased with the outcome of that painting. With the success of the last weekend and all the events that were taking place downtown, there's quite a few events coming up. Entertainment on the Stars starts next week for 4 weeks in the month of July on Tuesday nights. Downtown Farmers Market starts this coming Saturday. Tibbetts is now underway with their summer theater for the next month and a half, and fireworks on July 4th. And then one that I was going to make reference to, and you'll have information in the coming managers' reports, but there's an expanded art walk put on by Tibbetts and Arts Alive, which will be Saturday. It's a much longer, more elaborate festival that will take place on Saturday, July 20th. And so quite a bit of activities taking place during the course of the month of July. And then lastly, the city projects, South Jefferson Street continues, water main is nearly complete, sanitary sewer will be beginning soon. We do continue to have concerns about kids and pedestrians in the area and non-essential traffic, so we just ask that you obey the barricades and the signs and stay as far away as possible from the construction area. Thompson Boulevard was bid the last meeting and is scheduled to begin on July 8th in 2 weeks. And the milling and paving of Henry, Hatch, and Washington will be part of that, but that will be taking place with the paving of Thompson Boulevard once that nears completion in August. There's been quite a few questions about Milne's parking lot and apartment project. And we've made contact in the last week with the developers. That's still moving forward. By all indications from them, it is now scheduled to begin in mid-July. And then lastly, more of a maintenance project, but just to be aware that when weather does permit, and we do have Excel paving lined up, we're going to be asphalt repairs and seal coating of Rumsey Plaza between Tibbetts and the post office. And so there will be a couple days in which that will be out of service, but we're going to coordinate that. Hopefully we'll coordinate it with the weather, obviously, but also coordinate it with Tibbetts schedules and keeping it open during the week for the post office. So with that, that's my manager's report.
Question? Motion to approve the manager's report?
So moved.
Support. Motion, I have support. No, you gonna make one up?
No.
Over here so much. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. Motion carried. In an effort to continue his positive day, next we have Jeff Budd. Wastewater rate adjustments.
I apologize for the technical difficulties. Again, my apologies for the technical difficulties. First of all, I just wanted to say this is always my least favorite part of the job. Unfortunately, rate increases are always necessary, and I hope by the time we've done through the rest of the presentation, you can understand why we're requesting this rate before you today. Secondly, I really hope that everybody already had dinner, because what I'm going to show you is not the nicest thing. So for anybody who has wheezy stomachs in the audience or at there, please turn your head. So with that, I do have a lot of slides, so I'll go through quickly because I know I have a lot on your agenda, but this is ultimately very important. So I want to make sure that you answer any questions you have in front of you. So real quick, you can see the agenda for there. If I can ding, we'll go to the next one. Just a little quick history. This plant is very old, originally built in 1952. Repairs are needed. As you're going to see, some of the things that we're running from the 1980s. I'm old too, I still work, but not nearly like I did when I was brand new. So a little more of the history. So our last rate increase was taken back in June of 2017, so it's been 2 years since we've taken a rate increase. Based on the May of 2017 cost of service study, which was done by Utility Financial Solutions. One of the things that you can see, and again I apologize for not being able to, but the very first column after the date is, that's what they projected we should increase our rate. So actually they said last year we should have did a 12.5% increase, 12.5, 12.5, 9.5, 9.5. We're going to get into the big reasons, but you can kind of see down there at the very bottom where it says recommended minimums. they really feels we need to start building cash. And we're going to go over the reasons why we need to build that cash here in a few slides. But it's very important that these financial targets are met and matched. Next slide, please. So as you can see from the cost of service study, they have three main financial targets. The debt service coverage, which we're meeting the minimum cash reserves, the optimal net income. So today's targets are not a problem. We are financially stable at the moment, but the problem is what's going to be coming down the road, which is what we're going to talk about next. Again, we talked about why needed. I'll do this slide. Next. Financial review. So myself or Tom can definitely give you the background behind this, but we have a stable balance sheet. We have a very positive operating income. Those are some of the positives. The big concern is our future MERS liability. That's the same that was presented to you, except we're at actually probably a little bigger issue. Also our debt load, and again, we're going to come back to that. So next one. The biggest thing I want to talk about is our debt service. So for every dollar that we collect of wastewater revenues, 36 cents of that actually goes just to pay our debt service, the principal and interest that is owed on the capital improvements that we've already made the plant. The plant itself is very capital intensive. When you talk about making additions, they're in millions of dollars, not thousands of dollars. So whatever you do is always very labor intensive, as well as it is also very cash intensive in terms of what you have to build, because you need big vessels. So just kind of keep that in mind, 36 cents for every dollar. Next, please. So the question that always comes up is, well, why don't you just cut staff? Well, a lot of people think we have 50 guys down there. We don't. We have a total staff of 5 people. If you look at the total overhead of about approximately $1 million, this is less than 30% of our overhead costs. So it's a very small amount of people that we can actually get rid of people and save money. The other problem is a 24/7 operation, 365 days a year. It never stops. So it's not like we can let these guys go. Because they all work weekends, you need a certain amount of people to do it, and you can't have one guy fixing a pump by himself while he's also trying to run the lab. It just doesn't work. We do run a very efficient crew. John Foley and Brian Musman do a great job managing the guys. And so just to kind of give you an update, we always talk about the major costs. As you can see there, these are the things that you really we can't change our electric bill very much. We can't change our chemicals, sludge handling. These are all costs that we have to incur whether we treat 1 gallon or 1 million gallons. Next slide down, please. Now we're going to start switching into the major capital improvements that are needed. We have a big boy lift station. It's called Big Boy Lift Station because it's on the former Big Boy property. So that lift station is actually in need of significant repairs. It leaks, it's old, it needs to be redone. It's about $500,000, okay? So it's not something that is a matter of hey, maybe we shouldn't put this off. It's a matter of, hey, we need to do this last year, but we've already put it off. And so we're hoping that we can finish this up and get this started by January of next year. Another big thing is the headwork screen. This is one of the things that if you've been reading the staff minutes that we send out every week, this is the thing that basically pulls the trash out of the wastewater stream. So all your paper pies, anything, rubber ducks that get flushed down the toilet from the kids, always gets ended up in the screen. Right now that screen is about 2003, so it's already 16 years old, and it takes a beating. You're going to see some photos here later of what that really does. We also have to always plan ahead for repairs that are made in the streets. Jefferson Street's going to be about $100,000 for wastewater, and that's a street where we didn't have a lot of wastewater needs, but mostly it was water. So it is anytime we touch anything nowadays, we have to make these repairs, and it comes at a price because wastewater is very expensive. The next couple slides, we're going to talk about our digester repairs, $5 to $7 million. This is more significant. Again, our digesters are very old. You'll see some pictures about why these repairs are needed. Not only are the repairs for the capital, the vessels and the tanks themselves, but also for operational and safety issues for the crews. Next slide, please. Next slide. Oh, there we go. So our digester improvements, we've talked. This is something that we've had 2 different engineering firms take a look. They're old, between their 1950s and 1960s. And just so everybody kind of has a familiarity, those are the mounds that you just see the tops of the grass that goes up. Those are digesters. Basically, it breaks down the biosolids, so eventually you can land the flame. So I won't get into all the nasty grossness, but that's really where that is. We have to make some capacity issues there. There's some things that have not worked for a number of years. We do recirculate it. We do We have to heat that sludge to a certain temperature. It has to keep that temperature for 30 days in order to break down and have the enzymes and all the microorganisms work to kind of break down the bad stuff, the poo, if you wish, if you will. But it is one of those things. You can read down that list. These are not want lists. This is a matter of not when, but it's a matter of we needed these done, or a matter of, it's not a want, it's a need. We also have some safety concerns, as I mentioned, and then, of course, it's very important for our commitment to the environment. As again, probably aptly that it's said that bringing a water program, we take our commitment and our stewardship to the environment very seriously, and so that's also critical for us. So those are just a few of the major capital expenditures that we're going to need in the very near future. So with that, I think we're on to the pictures. So again, if you're squeamish, please turn your head. So this is our original settling tanks. These original tanks, this is actually one of the better ones. Can you go to the next one? I'm not sure about you, but I don't think a lot of guys will want to walk across those cement things the way they're crumbling. That doesn't mean they're all going to crumble. It's not going to fall in. But those rails and those rakes that you see that run across the water, those are original. They're from the 1950s. It's basically a 2x4 with big, can you go back one slide real quick? You can kind of see the sprockets that are down on the sides of this is a drain tank. So the tank was drained. We did some structural analysis on it. So the structures themselves aren't bad, but all those interior workings, if you can imagine doing what they do every single day for a long time, it really takes a beating on those mechanical, on the chains and all those things. And so at some point, those will need to be replaced. Next slide. And I'm going to try to go through these pretty quick. So if you have any questions, just because pictures worth 1,000 words, so, but...
This reminds me of a water park I went to.
We can put some floatables in there. I'm not sure everybody wants it. I don't necessarily get too many customers. So. Next one, please. So we talked about the Headworks building. We talked about that van screen that is currently not running. Obviously, all that stuff you see on top is stuff that shouldn't be there. It's stuff that's there because now we have no screen that is taking it off. The settling tanks does have a way to remove that, but this should be caught up in that Headworks screen. We are looking at, one of the things that you're going to see is we need to replace some changes to the Headworks screen itself. But this is the main thing that this does, is kind of remove the sludge and the nastiness out of the wastewater stream. So next slide, please. Next, we're going to look this is actually the Headworks building itself. What you see coming out the top of that auger is exactly what you think it is. It's everything that you don't really want to know. But again, if you'd like to take a tour, come on down, we'll be glad to show you. So we're going to take just a couple quick slides. You can kind of see the environment. So the building on the left is kind of the van screen itself. There are other options. We basically have what's called a muffin monster, which basically takes that same information and instead of removing it, it just cuts it into small pieces. So what happens is those small pieces go all the way through our system, fills up our brand new trickling filters, which we just spent millions of dollars actually replacing the media, plugs up our nozzles. So somebody's actually got to go in there and replace that stuff. So again, it's not the nicest environment, and you can kind of see what impact it has on these next slides. Next slide, please. Again, just another picture. Next slide. You kind of get an idea that the gearbox is what's been causing us, which is that top little blue thing you can kind of see. That's the gearbox. That needs replaced. They figured out the only way to replace it is to cut it off and we put a brand new piece in. So we've been waiting on that to get back. That's the main thing that's been causing us some problems in trying to get our Headworks building back up so it's screened at the front of the plant, not after the settling tanks. Next slide. Again, you can kind of see the environment. Next slide. Next slide. We'll flip through these. This is a terrible picture, but this is our UV. Basically, much like a barber, you see UV lights on people's combs and as well as the scissors. This actually, all the wastewater actually runs through a UV channel. That UV has these tubes in it. You can kind of see it with that picture there. We're going to show it. That's down in the waste stream. That just does the final clarification of the water and tries to neutralize any remaining organisms before it gets released. These are all things, this ultraviolet light, all these be replaced. It's been outside, it's not covered, it's been exposed to the elements. It's starting to show its wear and tear. So just the point of that is just to show you, the age of that equipment. Next slide. This is what something new looks like. So these are sludge, and these are in our main pump room. These are the pumps, but you kind of get an idea of scale and size of what we're looking for. We're not looking for a pump that you just start up in your backyard and pump for a 2-inch hose. These are very large, 16-inch in diameter, if not larger pumps. So next slide, please. A lot of people have never been to the basement. Nobody really wants to go to the basement. But this kind of gives you an idea of the amount of piping and the amount of pumps that we have to do. Now, these are all underneath those settling tanks that we saw with the original slide there. Next slide, please. This is also underneath these settling tanks. This is our tunnel. You can't see it, but that middle blue beam or blue pipe that's covered is something that actually needs to be replaced. We've had some problems with recapturing some of our gases, and we have to replace that. Removing those pipes is very hard. As you can see, there's not a lot of room to work. Of course, we had to get asbestos removal because of the coating on the pipe. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So this is actually some of the pumps that were still running. They're 1980s vintage. This one looks a little bit worse just because they're doing some work when I took the picture. Next slide, please. Here's what you see. They're kind of like a piston pump. So pistons pump leak. Next slide. This is what you get. We've actually kind of our homemade plumbing. What you see is what you get. What's on the floor is what you think it is, and it's nothing that you want to be stepping in. So you can kind of see it does leak. But again, these are being replaced currently, but nothing is done cheaply. So next slide, please. This is what it's being replaced with. So this is new vintage versus the old vintage. Next slide. This is on top of the digester, so you can kind of see the piping there is quite old. The brown box to the left is some equipment that has been there since the beginning, and it's never worked. Apparently what happened was the boundary sand years and years ago plugged up all the pipes, and so it went out of service and has never really ran properly. That's the story I get. Of course, I wasn't here back then. So again, there's a lot of improvements that need to be made with these digesters, because this equipment was originally planned so that you could circulate the sludge inside those digesters. So that equipment, you know, again, I don't say it never worked, but again, didn't work very long before there was operational problems because of, you know, back then they didn't have the separation of the sediments right at the plant itself. So next slide, please. This is one large cover. You can kind of see the area to the left. You can see no water. If you go next slide, please. Look on the other side. So what has happened is the cover has tilted. So we're trying to figure out why that is. That is a methane cover. It captures all the methane. So there's no way, because right now it's just being released to the atmosphere. Those black columns you see, those are big, basically I-beams that these rollers run up and down. In theory, the cover goes very slowly up and down. Those I-beams have become out of kilter, they've been bent, and you're going to see, next slide please. Again, you can kind of see why, you know, this, in a perfect world, there'd be no water. This just shows the dry side. And kind of get an idea what those I-beams look like. So next one. This is what is wrong, is that there was actually blocks underneath those. And you can kind of see that's obviously not designed to be bent. And so it has been bent. It's very expensive to replace that cover. We've got differing opinions on the replacement of that cover, whether it can be replaced or it just needs a new one put on, or whether it can be straightened. Again, we're working on equipment that was put in the 1950s technology. Next slide. So this is what one looks like when there's still a block underneath it, but you can kind of see the stress of that brick or the cement piece underneath those rollers. You can look at it and tell. It served us well, but at some point we need to move forward and make some changes. Next slide. This is our torch. There's no nameplate on that. John Foley's been with us roughly 25, almost 30 years. He's never seen it work, so this is the flare, which we should be flaring off any additional methane gas and not releasing it. So we don't know who the manufacturer of this is, other than we think it was maybe done by ourselves. So it's kind of a homemade remedy. This is something that needs to be corrected, not only for safety, but for a lot of different reasons. Next slide, please. Just kind of give you an idea what these digesters look like. You can kind of see the cement there. No matter what type of, how much maintenance you do, this is what they keep going. Next slide. Just another picture. You can kind of get an idea of the age of the concrete. It doesn't mean it's breaking. It just means it's older. Next slide. Again, just another example of the environment that it's in. It's a very corrosive area. Next slide. These are our last, our final clarifiers. These are originals. You can kind of see, next slide, please. Again, these arms need to have all new guts put in them. They're working fine, but again, at some point, you really just need to replace the maintenance part of them, which is that sweeping arm that basically takes off any final issues and then returns it back to the sludge. It gets turned back right back to the front end of the plant. Next slide, please. And this is the last picture. So Again, this is our sludge offloading station. Apparently it quit working back sometime 20-some years ago because it wasn't fast enough, because the people who were taking care of our sludge decided that they wanted it quicker. So we're trying to put it back in service. We feel that we've got an arrangement with a local farmer who wants to take our sludge and land apply it, so in a way we're cutting out the middleman. But again, these are all pumps that need to be replaced. So again, you can turn your head back again. It's okay if you don't look any more nasty than this, because we're back to normal. So the next slide. So the other issue we talked about, so those are the repairs. The other issue we have is capacity. So currently, again, plant built 1952. It was built and it served us well for over 60 years. Our current capacity at that plant is 3.2 million gallons a day. To give you an idea, in January to April, it ranged anywhere from 2.7 to 3.1 on average. Unfortunately, what happens is whenever it starts raining, which is every day in Michigan anymore, all of a sudden, whenever it rains, we get what's called I&I, which is groundwater basically coming into our pipes. We've done a lot to remove it, but you can start seeing what happens in May, 3.8 million gallons a day. April is 4.0. And I said, well, it must be what you're pumping. Well, no, because if you look at the gallons pumped, it stays relatively the same. We don't really change our water pump much, but we're treating 4, but we only pump 4, this one says 2.8, that's year to date. So somewhere we're getting 1.2 million gallons of just waste or clean water into our system from some point. And again, that assumes that every gallon pumped ends up going to the sanitary sewer, which is not necessarily true. Again, the difference is the groundwater, the I&I. Next slide, please. So in talking about it, we've discussed that we're treating when we're pumping. I believe that last Thursday we had a really big rain. So, excuse me, Wednesday, and then so on Thursday our results were we treated over 5 million gallons that day, but we only pumped less than 3 million gallons. So there was 2 million gallons every time it rained really hard. So again, our job is to try to remove as much of this I&I from the problem that we can. This has been greatly improved from last year. So if you look at the example I have there, in May we treated 5 million gallons, only pumped 2.78. So we have cut that down because we've made a lot of continued improvements on the sanitary linings. The big boiler station will also take out some additional I&I from that leaking. And we're continuing to look for different ways to remove that I&I. Again, the goal is to delay the plant expansion as much as possible. So if you could, now, and I also don't want to say that 3.2 is a hard number. Our plant is designed to handle way more than that on a peak basis, but on the average, that's usually where the DEQ likes us at 3.2. So I don't want people to think, oh, we're discharging. We're not. We have not violated, even in those heavy months last year, there was no violations that we were prepared to the DEQ. So again, for our plant, we did a great job. A lot of other plants around the state, especially last year and some this year already, are already violating the permits because they're overflowing the plant because the water is just much higher than it's ever been in the last 25 years from before we started keeping track of that. So next slide. So we talked about the repairs that need to be done. We talked about the capacity issue. So the only way to really fix capacity is plant expansion. So right now the cost estimates are anywhere from 15 to 20 million. There's been estimates up to 25 million. It just depends on how much you want to add to the park. We are evaluating new techniques and new technology. One of the things we looked at was the algae product, which I think several of you was able to attend. We're looking at how we reduce bottlenecks at the plant. We talked about the UV. We also talked about our disc filters. Our disc filter is basically running it through carpet, if you think. It's grabbing all the finer particulates before they be discharged. That disc filters they're great big rooms. I don't know, there's 4 of them that we have. Their nameplate says we can only do 3.2. We're looking at ways to bump it up from 3.2 to 4. So we're looking for different ways to increase our capacity without having to make a whole other expansion. Because the one thing that needs to happen is our current plant will always need to exist. So we're going to need to have kind of sister plants, if you would. Some of the things that are concerned is if all said in DEQ, our permits for 5 years, we have 3 more years remaining. If something were to happen to DEQ, and they're now called the Beagle, but yeah, I don't know how to also pronounce it, so they did change their name, so I will use the old name for now. But they may force expansion. They may say, hey, we are going to put a moratorium on anybody adding to the sewers at schools and anybody else, so nobody else can add to our system. We don't think that's likely, but it is always out there. Okay, back one more. One of the things too is that non-detect limits. Because we do discharge, we're the farthest point to the west or the east that discharges to the west. So if you think about all the water that ends up here goes that way, they want us to be the least polluter to the lakes and going that way. Our guys do a great job. We really have almost non-detect levels now, but there are some things that, the DQ is always changing, especially now with all the things that have happened up in Flint, the wastewater issues. So those regulations are continuing to get stronger and stronger. So again, those also come into play. Again, I apologize for taking so long, but again, the goal is to postpone this as long as possible. This always depends. I know that we've had a lot of economic growth. Well, if any of those companies want to grow more, we need to be prepared for that next expansion. So next slide, please. We did have our engineers, again, this isn't the only thing, as part of a much bigger study, they did look, well, what are the wastewater needs of the plant going forward? You can kind of see where they are. Again, we're currently at 2.83, that was last fall. But you kind of see at some point we're going to need to do this. It's not, we hope to put this off as long as possible. It is not a matter of will we ever need to. We're going to, because we're continuing to grow as a community. Either that or what you see is what you're going to get, and we won't be able to do any more. So again, the need is also to plan for the future and start building up for some of these needed items. Next slide. So you kind of see the areas in yellow. That was one conceptual plan of what is needed at that plant to kind of build a plant around our existing plant. Again, we're continuing to basically whittle that down and really investigate, analyze that, whether that is the way we want to go or how we want to handle that. Next slide, please. Everybody says, well, just borrow the money. Well, we'd be glad to, but if you recall, we have 36 cents now for every dollar. If you look at what it would cost, we can't borrow all of it. That's why it would be nice to kind of do a little bit of both. If I'm building a house or if I'm trying to make, I got to repair my roof, I want to start saving up some money now so I don't have to borrow the whole thing. I'm going to have to borrow some money, but I also want to be able to try to pay some cash down as well. So any additional amount that we can reduce the overall borrowing is a good thing. You can kind of see what the debt service would be. Now, this is on a $15 million plant at 4% for 30 years. That's $850,000 annually that we've had to add to that already existing debt. So if you go to the next slide. Again, what we're looking at is basically $4 for residential. I know that's what everybody always equates it to. There is going to be no increase to the water rates. Again, we looked at the water condition and really felt that if we needed to increase our wastewater rates, that's where we need to do that. Again, if you look at it, you could say it would be $2 last year that we didn't raise the rates. We probably needed to make sure that we raise these every year. Again, so if you think about it, last year we didn't give an increase, but this year we're going to be requiring it. So next slide, please. And this is always the question: is what's it going to cost us? In the pack itself, it shows the varying different rates for every rate class. Everybody's different depending on how much they use. But the commodity charge versus the fixed charge, and again, we can go down through those rates, but it really is a small amount of increase. Go to the next slide. One of the things that we always talk about is where we compare to our peers. You can kind of see we're in the green. I can't read that. I think it says $47.90 or $47. You can kind of see, but we're average. That was just done last Friday. So you can kind of see we're still in the middle. We're not higher. We're around most of all those people. Hillsdale, Charlotte. You can kind of see where we rank. Next slide. I threw the next slide in here just for comparison. You can also see, though, that our water rates are also still significantly lower than most of the other communities around us. So if you combine the two, which we do for debt service and other things, look at it one, we're still we're right in the middle, right where we probably should be. So, and it's always hard to compare because everybody's plants are different. Some people remove iron, some people remove manganese, so it is a little bit different to compare. So it's not like we're not selling apples and apples. Their plants might be newer, our plants might be older. It just depends on when they last had to make a capital investment. Next slide, please. So what does the future hold? Well, both rates will probably come up. We talked about the future expansion and talking specifically wastewater. The DEQ requirements is a concern. You just don't know what the fallout is going to be. The MERS liability is an issue. We don't know what will happen. The debt service requirements, will somebody require us to do something else? Will interest rates shoot up? Again, right now it's still a historically low time to borrow money. And you can kind of see the water rates kind of the same situation. The good news is that this means that the rates will continue to be looked at on an annual basis and probably adjusted annually. Does it mean we're going to follow entirely the recommendations of utility financial solutions? No, but it gives us a pretty good idea of where we need to be. And it's one of those things that Tom and I and Amanda will definitely be analyzing and making sure that, you know, we're preparing ourselves for the future. Today we're fine, but if we don't prepare to keep our eye off the ball, it's going to come back and bite us. And so with that, I'll answer any questions. I do apologize for the length of this presentation.
Council?
You said this is kind of would be a sister system. Does one feed into the other, or is it literally two operating systems?
We look at a couple different things. It depends on the technology we go with, but primarily they would almost be separate.
Two separate.
Yeah, so when you think about, we talked about, in theory, could we keep one on residential and another one on the commercial industrial? Mostly industrial, sorry. I'd love to be able to say we didn't have to do this, but we need to start planning for the future.
I think we've heard, I mean, you've prepared this before, so it's not a huge surprise.
No.
I remember Charlie was still here, and it was 5-6 years ago. We were redoing structure on streets, and that's when the cameras were going through the sewer lines, and that kind of was the heads up of this is what's coming. Is that what goes to those goes to the plant?
Yep, and we got the same cameras. I can bring that up again if somebody wants and show you the water just pours in on certain times when it's raining. We have made a lot of improvements. Brian Musselman and his John Foley and all the guys down there have done a great job.
I don't even know how to word my question, but my concern is when we do the large projects like the greenhouse and Clemens, and as we look to grow our industry for the city, what kind of effect is that having on it? When they come in, are we abating any costs when they, well, you know, I don't know, when they come in?
Not for water, wastewater.
Okay, and then so is their rate comparable? They pay the same type of rate per gallon that we pay residentially?
Yeah, if you look at the, Sue, you can go one up, please. Wastewater is something, excuse me, I meant, reverse that, one slide up, go down. My up here, sorry. Down more. And so these are our readiness to serve charges. This is based on the meter sizes that you know, if you have a bigger meter, you pay more of a fixed monthly fee. You have to pay into the system to cover that fixed hard cost. If you look down below, there is no different rates. So from a commodity standpoint, you are still paying $3, whether you're industrial, commercial, the XYZ company, you're paying the same as residential customers. It costs the same to treat clean water from residential as compared to industrial.
Then, for our projections though, how, in theory, not to say to not have a Clemens or a Master Garden, but if we didn't have like a few of the big, large industrial dumps coming into it, does that affect our planning? Do we have to try and plan for that? That's going to cost us more?
Yep. I'll change the example. Let's talk about the prison closed, 2 of the 3 prisons. We saw a major decrease. So we had opened up capacity, right? So if they were to close the next prison, it would open up capacity. I know you work there. So, but anyway, so if you look at it, it always is dependent on what were to happen or somebody were to open or close. The question is, you know, we can, you know, if we always keep right at full capacity, that's great. But then when we get an opportunity to bring in another company, we have to be honest with them and say, well, we can't take on your wastewater stream. Now again, you know, some of the most recent ones are you know, are probably the extreme example. Most people don't have that much wastewater. We have capacity in the water side of things. It's just, and again, we feel that we're going to be able to make some of these bottlenecks open up to get some additional capacity. Again, I know, you know, I don't want to use the name Clemens because that's unfair, but they also pay their own way. Do their rates, and we'll be paying more since they're using it, just like you do and I do at my home. But the thing is, everybody's blaming, saying, well, we wouldn't have this problem without them. That's really not true, because there's days that we're way above the numbers. If I can pull up, like we're at 5, they didn't use 5 million gallons. That's 5 million gallons that came from Mother Nature. And so regardless of them, and again, you know, I don't ever like using specific names of comparisons, but want to set the record straight that this is not a one industry solution. It's everybody who flushes their toilet, to be honest.
And then we'll be able to expand the new system you're looking at, is kind of where my question was going. If more came in, could we, a slight expansion?
Correct. We're looking at if it could be scalable. How much do you build? Again, there's days on weekends we have capacity. It just depends on when they use it. The EQ not building, the EQ storage tanks were used for the exact reasons. It kind of levelizes that flow. One of the things that's important to realize is, you know, ultimately we do have a cap. You know, we probably won't be building a new water plant. So when we tap out on water, we probably won't build a wastewater plant that's bigger than our water plant. And, you know, in theory, they shouldn't match. Again, we can make some improvements. We continually are. This isn't, you know, we're not building a plant tomorrow, but it could come up in the near future, and we're just wanting to be prepared.
So we're very comfortable with this projection that
Very
20, 30, 40 years out.
I hope so. You know, just like when somebody in 1952, when they built it, they had where they're looking out. They did a great job looking out 6. I think our fiduciary responsibility is to look out for the next 60 years. We've benefited from it. Nobody wants to build a new plant. I don't want to go through one and hope and put it off as long as we can.
Right. Thank you, Jim.
Any questions for Joe?
What are the projections in terms of when, if we go through with this, when would you start potentially the expansion process?
We're actually trying to do the engineering way in advance so we kind of know, so that if some company wants to come to us and say, hey, we're ready to expand tomorrow, that we can build with them. So we're trying to make it so that we're ready. There's no plans on anybody telling us right now, but it is something that we're considering to manage. But we also want to be prepared if the DEQ were to come back and say, which again is not likely, but if they were to come back and say, hey, we were requiring you to do an expansion, that we can say, here's our plan, and they will usually work with us to say, hey, yeah. So again, we're meeting all our permit requirements. So again, I don't want to make any aspersions that we're polluting wastewater. We are not. It's very clear when it comes up. You can probably drink it, but it's just that thought that I just can't bring myself to do it. So.
It'd be a good campaign.
Yeah, it's just the thought of it more than the actual performance.
There are no more questions. Jeff is requesting that we adopt resolution 1942, which would equate to about a 9% wastewater rate. So, what's your pleasure? I know what your pleasure is, but what do you think we should do?
Move to adopt resolution 1942.
Randall?
Support.
Support. Don, any final comments or questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Number 11, the fiscal year 1920 budget, which we've been over. Dr. Keith?
Thank you, Your Honor. We did have the public hearing at the last meeting. Just a couple of the high points. We have a $4.2 million fund balance that represents about 40% of our annual revenues. We are projecting a $271,000 deficit within the budget. We've explained that to you based on the interest in purchasing some additional capital equipment. So that is what was reflected in the majority of the deficit. The finance director corrected me after the meeting last meeting that we do have a $10 million general fund. I made reference to the fact that we're a $10 million business. On the general fund side, we are a $10 million business, but we're also a $56 million business on the other funds. And so when you look at the totality of the budget, it includes the BPUs, the BPU accounts, as well as all the other special revenue funds like streets and rubbish and so forth. That equates to another $56 million. And then we do want to point out the fact that because of the revenues that have been coming in, we are projecting a 0.23 millage reduction on the road millage from 1.98 to 1.75. So that will be a reflection of a reduction in millage for the residents of the community. But each one of these 4 things needs to be addressed separately for the General Appropriations Act, the special funds, tax general obligation bond, and the retirement fund.
Again, question, Tom, is at the podium, so I would ask Megan, do you think you can take all these 4 in one?
You try annually, but
I think his mom will screw up on that, but she doesn't. So if we don't have questions, our first look for a motion to consider adoption or not adoption of Resolution 1931.
Motion to adopt number 1931.
Support.
We have motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. B, looking for adoption or not adoption of Resolution 1932.
Move to adopt resolution 1932.
Support.
Motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. C, would a motion to adopt or not adopt Resolution 1933.
Move to adopt resolution 1933, Your Honor.
Support.
We have motion and support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. And finally, a motion to adopt or not adopt Resolution 1934.
Move to adopt resolution 1934.
Support.
We have a motion, we have support. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Good job, Tom. Number 12, a letter from Deb. So Dean's gonna take it.
well, he'll be my resource. I'll introduce it, and I can feel the energy waning in the room, but as we hit an hour and a half. But this is the time of year in which we look at, again, those properties that have been foreclosed upon for property tax non-payment in the state of Michigan. And there are 6 properties within the city this year that have been foreclosed upon. We've identified those 6 properties, and we're bringing them to you as a whole to discuss to what degree whether you want to purchase all 6 or none at all. And we can look through the individual properties as to what they are, what would merit their purchase or not purchase, and what the total would be, which is in Resolution 1941, should you choose to approve that, or some proration of that, if not all 6. So if you indulge me, 25 Munson is a single-family residence of poor condition for $8,600. 134 Grand Street is a single-family residence for $12,500. 49 West Montgomery, and I don't, these lists may not be in the same order as the pictures, but 49 West Montgomery is actually just a vacant lot that we've been mowing for a couple of years now, and that's how that $1,700 gets accumulated. And then 106 North Hanchett is a single-family residence, and the reason why which that grew so large is because there was within the legal description, there was an inaccuracy in the legal description, so it couldn't be foreclosed upon for a couple extra years, so it accumulated greater costs and expenses over an additional number of years. 55 East Park is a small house for $4,600, and 10 South Monroe Street at $19,000 is the former Lefty's Lounge Bar. Total, that would come to $72,950, or some portion of that.
I see Kenny's here, so I assume we're gonna go, you're planning to go through one by one and give us an update on the condition.
If you'd like me to, I have Dean and Kenny here to talk about condition or status. Otherwise, if on the 3 residential properties, 2 of which we would recommend demolition, the 25 Munson.
What's your pleasure? Do you want to go through one by one and see what the first one? There is a legitimate question about us buying properties that investors may buy and may or may not fix up well. And should the city be in the business of, so I guess first I'd like to get an update from Kenny or Dean of are they repairable, or are they such, we started the program if they're in such disrepair that they really can't be brought back to life, and we're doing the neighborhood of concern. We've kind of expanded that a bit, but it's up to the 9 of us, so is that okay with everyone, that we kind of go through item one by one and decide if it fits our criteria? Okay. Do you have a plan you want to go through in order, or how do you want to?
I can go through them kind of in order here and give you my notes, and then we can bring Penny up for any more in depth. So I'll start with 25 Munson Street. That's coming off of the foundation at the northwest corner, so the building itself is actually shifted, and the foundation is giving way beneath it. The demolition estimate is between $5,000 and $6,000, then an additional $3,500 approximation for asbestos abatement on that property.
How much is, can you tell us how much each one is, the tax sale first, how much is that?
Yeah, that is $8,600. So we'd be looking at approximately $10,000 or so on top of that for the demolition and asbestos abatement, so that would be an $18,000.
Kenny's familiar with this building, house?
It's leaning severely, but I have not been inside.
Everybody will come up, Kenny, because we're going to put you on the spot. Has it been a rental or a single family?
No, it's been a single family and it hasn't been occupied for several years, to my knowledge. And if you look at it, this picture doesn't show, but on one back corner of the house is leaned probably at least 6-8 inches. And so the foundation's leaning away, so it's.
Anybody can jump in here, but you're our building inspector. Do you believe it's?
That's going to take some major cost to rebuild it and get it back into shape. I've not been on the inside, but on the outside, it was foundation work.
What are the adjacent properties, like single-family homeowners?
Yeah, Mason Dorsey, I don't know what it's called, is on one side and there's homeowners on the other. Ruger's across the street.
The other one. It's commercial to what is actually the south or the right is commercial. This is kitty corner from Shortsford Beer Stand.
Okay.
Often it's hidden by the long grass.
So you really have a strong opinion structurally, whether it's, have you turned into a nice, wonderful family house or not?
Yeah, it would take a lot of money and a lot of work to get it into a good house.
For sure.
So when we get these, we put this into it, I know we have the funds aside for it, but if we're gonna be 18,000 into it, and I'm just kind of looking right here, there is some potential for industrial or commercial use right next to it. Then are we gonna turn around and sell it for $1,500?
What we do. Originally it was to get rid of eyesores and blight, non-repairable houses that were just going to be kept in disrepair. Does staff have a recommendation on this one?
I think this is one that we thought that purposely, well, it's adjacent to commercial, but this is one that I think we want to demolish. I haven't heard otherwise from staff. Bob Granger's looked at these with Ken as well. So.
Are we inclined, we want to not purchase this at tax? The other choice we have, if we don't purchase either tax sale, my understanding now, and nobody buys them for the $8,600, they'll come back to us and we can bid less than the $8,600 a second time. But I'm guessing a private developer would snatch this up, slap a coat of paint on it, and rent it for a while.
Is it habitable?
I have not been inside to know what the conditions are. But with it leaning, there's got to be some probably cracks in the foundation. Side windows, doors,
Very small house too, I went by it, and they kind of very modest.
We've been the ones mowing it for a couple of years now. It's not been occupied for a number of years.
Are we okay with following staff recommendation on this one? Anybody want a contrarian opinion? Okay, let's move on to the second one, Dean.
Second one I had is 106 North Hampshire Street. This has no furnace inside of it. It was removed by the previous owner. The electrical needs updated. The roof is in terrible condition, and that's affected the floor of the structure as well, as the leak has continued to make its way inside. Demolition cost, we have an estimate of $6,000 to $7,000 on this, with that $3,500 asbestos.
This is the $26,000 one, right?
Yes, this is the $26,250, so approximately another $10,000 on top of that to demolish it.
Should we have that funds?
We don't have a fund.
Well, we budget 50 every year, but just like this year, we exceed that and make adjustments for it based on that.
Sorry.
Would this one come back to us more than likely for a lower bid?
Well, that's what I talked to you earlier, this potentially would be one that,
Would that number scare people away?
right, you're talking probably, they got it habitable. And, but it needs a roof, I know the roof's pretty much caving in, right, it's a shared driveway.
How long does it take to come back to us, though?
So the first auction will take place in August, and then there'll be a subsequent one. If those don't sell, then there'll be a subsequent later on in the fall. I used to, so the process changed last year, so it's a little bit of a new ballgame relative to the state process by which the county defers to the state for conducting the auction, and the state then utilizes a third-party private entity to auction off the property. So it's changed a little bit in the last 2 years as to the process.
Steve had suggested, I speak for him, that possibly we buy this one, we put a roof on it and get it stable, and then try to sell it, not totally fixed up. So we know at least, but we would, anybody that buys it, we would require that a roof be repaired on. It's uninhabitable right now, correct?
Correct, and the raccoons and stuff have been in it.
And no furnace.
Where the hole in the roof is leaking, it's about it than this one, and the floors are just real spongy, they're just absolutely soaked.
And no
Mold,
furnace.
mildew.
No furnace, yeah.
It needs a lot of work, the garage roof is gone, so basically the garage is worth nothing.
26,000.
One gamble is to let it go and then hope we can buy it for a bid at the fall at later auctions for, $5,000 or $10,000. We on top, we're not gonna let anybody buy this and move into it. It's uninhabitable, so you're gonna be able to go in there and put requirements on it, right?
We'd just be able to do the same thing if somebody came and bought it to flip it and rent it out, right? With our rental requirement.
Right. Well, either way, even if you're not a private developer, you're gonna go, or a private home, you're gonna be able to, right, because it's marked uninhabitable. So we've got some control over this one because it's already labeled. Are we okay with passing on this one right now? Does that make sense?
Yeah, great.
Number 3.
The next one is 134 Grand Street. This has a newer electrical box, but the wiring itself is not in tube. The porch is bad and the roof is also bad. There's additionally roughly 3 dumpsters worth of contents within the building that need to be removed.
How much money?
How much money? This is $12,500.
You went in this, Kenny?
Yes.
What's structurally like?
The structure seems pretty good, other than the roof leaking, and it's rotted, some of the ceilings are caved in. Needs plumbing, needs wiring, probably more if somebody wants to do it. The front porch is all concrete, poured roof and all, and it's starting to pull away from the house, plus some of the cement starting to come off the rebar, so it can be fixed. I recommend we take the porch off.
It's not marked uninhabitable now, though.
Yes,
You
it
know
is.
what it is? So again, you'll have control of anybody buys that, get it, at least things required fixed. Does that make a difference to us? It seems like it does, but I don't.
I mean, I would think on some of them, if we're gonna tag them, or not condemn them, but if they're gonna have to put 40,000, 50,000 into homes that are 15, 20, what's our rental rate? What are they buying for rental units? What are they saying?
I haven't seen anybody buying rental units lately.
Somebody will buy this for 12 and put 20 into it and probably get it very rentable. It just,
Yeah, for something.
what do you think, Chris?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a solid house. Why would I buy it? I mean, it's solid, but it needs work. But my only point is if Kenny has some control or make sure the essential things get done before we mark it habitable, that gives us some control without
want to clean it up.
I think we just want to clean it up. Pass on this one since Kenny's got some control, are we okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. Whatever you guys want to do, number 3.
The next house is 55 East Park Avenue. It's a pretty small house. The floors are bad in this house. It's been vacant for 12 years. Demolition cost approximately $4,000, $3,500 asbestos abatement. Purchase price would be $4,600.
This one right across the street from the electrical plant or
Railroad tracks.
Right.
Correct. On the next slide, it shows.
12 years has been vacant, have you said?
What's across the street from home?
the solar park.
Oh, yeah. On Park, yeah.
Surprised it hasn't gotten new here sooner, it's been vacant for 12 years.
Oh,
The property description was also incorrect, and finance got that corrected.
it was tied up in some probate with the family, and Kenny and I go back a long way with this one.
You say 4,600, that we said, buy it? You okay getting that one, getting it cleaned up? No, everybody?
You say clean up, being demolished?
What?
When you say cleaned up and being demolished?
Demolished.
Okay, yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
5?
The next one is 10 South. Oh, the next one is 49 West Montgomery. It's a vacant lot, 50 feet by 140 feet. Purchase price would be $1,700.
You're gonna remove the sign?
The sign is the auction house.
We're out there.
Why would we want to buy a vacant lot? I mean, is there
It's part of the tax foreclosure auction, so we've just listed the 6 properties that are.
We ourselves could put a house on it, or we could just let it up to see if one of the adjoining property owners would purchase it.
Or we could sell it for $1,500.
You're shrewd business. Sorry. What's your pleasure, pass on
Can
that?
you see the aerial of this? Where's this located at? Can I see the aerial? The next
Yeah,
slide.
where's the arrow on that? Montgomery?
Where's that street?
Let a neighbor buy it. We could buy a cut of grass.
1,700, that's all we're gonna do, so why would we gonna deal with it? I don't know. It's okay, letting it
Don't
go.
realize approach the neighbors.
This is
We
their
can
sign
help.
out.
Yeah, there's a sign and a lot number and a phone number.
You got a neighbor interested?
Yeah, but this is all before our actions, before the neighbors could purchase it, right?
Correct,
This is
right. We have first right of.
Right, so they wouldn't.
We had a neighbor come in today, she said, was inquiring about it.
Yeah, we've had somebody come in today who has the adjoining property next to it, and they just like to.
Yeah, I think they
Yeah.
would, sure.
Last one? Lefties?
The last one's 10 South Monroe Street, which is the former Lefties Lounge. I don't have any details on this. Kenny might have some more insight on it.
Rented upstairs apartments are rental, but I have not been in that rental
Not since it was open, right?
yeah, so kind of well since I've been in it.
Are
It was fast as rental at one point, but like I said, I have probably 5-6 years now or longer.
And are they up there, upstairs right now? Is it inhabited?
No, it's,
No, it's vacant now.
Right.
What's the purchase price on this one?
Purchase price on this one is $19,000. This was another that the legal description had some errors, so they wanted a few extra years before we were able to, before it got to this point. So a couple extra years for the taxes that have been kind of added on. So that's why the purchase price is inflated.
Been following this for several years, and there's approached some local restaurants about they might be interested. So I think the DDA and or we would be interested in having control of this as part of the Monroe Street potential revitalization for that money. The original was about $46,000 when it was up for foreclosure. It had federal liens on it, but those were washed away with this tax foreclosure. So we've been waiting for this price. So unless somebody got real concerns, it's kind of been on the agenda for a while. We're okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay with that? So we've got 25 months on in East Park and 10 South Monroe would be the yeses, what I gathered.
Keep an eye on it.
A fair lot of 109 Hudson and Grand Street. Just Well, in two of them, we have condemned, so we have some control over the empty lot.
And for the record, the lefties is not to demolish, that's to use, repurpose.
Is that eligible to everyone?
So in total, that would total $32,200.
Purchase price.
For those three parcels.
$30,000 now.
Well, then we still have
For
10.
those three parcels,
So what, since the resolution's already drawn up,
I think
how do you want
change that, I can pass it here and we will amend it.
to, you'll just change the handwriting is what you'll do?
So do you want a motion?
Yep, so I guess a motion to purchase the three properties as discussed.
Or as amended?
So, okay with that?
Yeah. Motion to accept resolution number 1941 as amended.
Okay.
I'll support.
Any final comments?